So thanks everyone for joining us for Stop Agent Sprawl, the AI Agent Sprawl. I'm Scott King, the Chief Marketer here at Krista Software. I'm joined by John Michelsen, our Chief Product Officer. Hey, John, how are you?
Good.
And we have Chris Kraus, my partner in crime on the Union podcast. So, hey, Chris, a VP of Product. So, thanks everyone for joining us. We are here to discuss choosing the right agentic platform. So, it's a paper that we put together. If you did RSVP for this event, I emailed you a link to download this. Hopefully, you got it. If you didn't get it through email, or grabbing it off of our website, go to Krista.ai, go to the resources section under white papers, and you'll see it as the first choice under white papers. You can click the link and you can read ahead, or you can listen to us talk about the results of the research and then read it afterwards. But anyhow, if you have a comment or a question, of course, just ask us and we'll try and get to it. If we don't, we'll answer it on the back end. But so to kick us off, John, I wanted you to give us an overview of, there's lots of reasons that we did the research, right? So we want people to take a really good look at how they're going to replatform their business. What would, what would an organization say, a mid-market, enterprise organization, something like that, what would it look like in 24 months from today? Like if you actually pulled the trigger, you did all the research, you started, doing AI in a strategic manner, what would it look like?
Yeah, Scott, this is a big deal. This is the motivation, the primary motivation for us to try to put together a seriously researched piece of work, because I think that the transformation that we're seeing in Krista customers is unbelievable, and when you play it out over a period of as little as 24 months, maybe even faster, you just realize the world is changing in an incredible way. And it is going to, I don't think it's provocative anymore to say that if you are not an incredibly competent AI consumer, then you are in serious trouble as a business. And I can give you examples, but rather than, you'll hear me plenty for this hour. So why don't I, Chris, pick a customer,
Yeah.
describe a journey that they took, and one of those that lets us kind of play out what does this actually mean, right? What does that mean to that business and even to that industry? And let's apply it to the ones that for folks who are on with us now.
Yeah. So I've thought of one that's an interesting one because they're not the most super giant company. They're not the most technology advanced people in the world, but they actually came to us with a business problem. They said it's a title company, and they said we want to expand our business, but we can't afford to hire 10 more title clerks if we do this, right? We want to actually move into the modern market. We want to make things self-service. We want to reach customers on digital channels versus just our channel partners, like, real estate agents we know in our network, open it up. And the catch 22 is we don't want to just double the size of the business. We want to do this. So how can we embrace AI? So they said, we want to actually do more with less that we talk about. But they said, if we create the demand, how do we actually have basically an agent learn how to be a title clerk? A title clerk is someone who actually like gets an email and says, oh, this is a general warranty deed. This is a release of lien or builder mechanics lien. They identify types of information and then draft the document, and then it goes back to them. So they said, we can't have 15 more people on staff to do that work. We want to figure out how to use AI, an agentic agent is what we call it today. How would we actually do that? And we're like, you are a perfect use case, because first, you're strategically saying, I want to expand my business. I want to use AI so I look different than our competitors. Because I said, if my competitors do this, they're going to up their costs and they're not going to increase any margins. And it may actually go the other way. They have too many costs based on, acquiring customers itself. So how do I do things through AI and change my business model? So it was actually really cool that they said, can an agentic agent, learn how to be a title clerk?
So
And that's what we taught Krista.
with that, Chris, did they identify that like the work, like the labor capacity was the big constraint and they were trying to get around it, or
Oh, definitely.
trying to figure out
Yes.
how to?
It takes hours, and it's very tedious. We've talked about it on the podcast, Scott, right? How like the same person doing the same thing over and over makes mistakes. Like you can cut and paste your whole life, but and literally they're cutting and pasting from different documents. They're having to research things. And so there's a lot of human minutia that can get wrong. So it's like you you just can't do more of these a day because your brain can't handle it, right? You actually have to scale with more people. You can't say, oh, by the way, you have no more 50 pieces of work in the day. There will be a larger error count. So just adding people or adding more work to people because it's a very detailed thing, looking at because you're reading legal documents. Come on, think about it. How horrible is that? And looking for it's not, there's 17 dates in this document. Pick the right three. It's very detail oriented, right?
So Chris, let's play this out. So here's a title company that now is taking hours down to 5 minutes of legal review.
Definitely.
Yeah. And more than 80-90% of the time, Krista is 95% of the legal work there.
Well,
And go ahead.
Well, and the thing is, since they're expanding to markets of the general customers, they're not going to get perfect data every time. So what it is in a perfect world, like a realtor would get all the documents ahead and then send them over. But in this case, they want to open their markets to consumers like you and me. So hopefully they got all the data. So it's not just data in, data out. It's like data in, what's missing, you human in the loop to prompt back and then finish it. So they actually did a neat process there that it's not a simple date like A, B. It's like A, validate, ask for B, C, D, and then create the documents.
Very much real world, right? The fact that no one's data is perfect. No one's got a perfectly clean process that always works the same way. Great. But the reason I asked you for an example case study is we've just heard the experience of one customer who has just started, right? There's dozens of types of legal title work that company could do. And they now have an 80% lower cost of delivering that service. And they have excess capacity in which to go into the market and sell against title companies who are not doing this yet.
Yep.
Even at 50% off the current industry rates, they still make more money. Now, guys, that, if it were an isolated case, would not make an interesting opening story on a podcast like this. But this is not a one-off. Every single successful Krista implementation is doing significantly more than what I think a lot of people understand or expect. There seems to be this bipolar thing with AI projects that are either crazy, ridiculous science projects where you have better luck using the old remember the 8-ball with what was you got as much luck getting it.
Magic 8-ball,
It was an
later.
Yeah, exactly. And at my stage of life, the question I asked all the time was, I was a teenager, so you can probably imagine. But anyway, you got as much luck with your successful, crazy, ridiculous science project as that, or it's so weirdly tactical that you've just taken 15 minutes of effort off of somebody's tasks sometimes. But but the companies that are being incredibly thoughtful about this and thinking about this a different way, like the way you just described that title company, are going to dominate their market. They are certainly not going to be a loser in this. If anything, they'll be a tremendous winner. And that's what I obviously as the founder of a company that's now committing itself to the success of customers that invest with us, I obviously want to see that to be the case. But I think it gets to a bigger point here. We need to help educate the market that what you need is a core competency in order for you to be one of those like that title company, and not like some of the numbers out on the market are 85% of all AI projects are failing. What you've got to do to be one of those in the 15% that are going to dominate their markets, clearly survive, if not obviously win, is you've got to make velocity of embracing technology change. Of course, AI change, but technology change in general. That's got to become a core in the fabric of how you do everything. And the adoption of AI capabilities into your core processes has to be job one. If it isn't, I think you're just hoping the rest of your market is sleeping. I mean, I don't know what else to say. I mean, and I'm not trying to be overly provocative. In fact, I don't find what I'm saying even provocative at this point. I think I have too many examples. Chris just gave us one of dozens we could share with you. It doesn't make sense for someone to say anymore, this is a fad. This won't affect us all that much. We'll look at it this year. We'll do a couple of pilot projects. Those are folks that are going to end up working for other companies in a year or two.
Yeah, I
I'm
think
just being completely candid.
under like if you don't know that you need that core competency and you continuously evaluate and think about it, I think someone either to the left or right of you they're on their third or fourth mistake of trying, right?
That's right.
I think they're experimenting, right? And it could be either one of the giant science projects that you were talking about, John, or something that, makes somebody's job go just a little bit faster, but they're already learning. Whereas everybody else is like, yeah, I guess we ought to do this. Like,
So, so the reason we introduced this way, and we should probably set a better agenda, but the reason we introduce this way is we really do think we have an obligation being essentially a mature product in a very immature space and being uh, responsible for a lot of these early projects wins and all of this and the movement that's going on. We need to help you understand how would you platform yourself to do this. And the biggest question about it, and this is what led us to the paper and all of the work that we're doing beyond it, is wait a minute, we're trying to tell a market that there is a very, very critical technology decision that they need to make. And I think they already know that part, right? Adopting AI in some strategic fashion. And I think they're already getting that. But that how they do that and the approach they take is fundamentally going to set the trajectory of their success or lack of success. And yet they don't all know all that much about AI. They're okay. So make this super critical, important decision. And by the way, you play around with a GPT sometimes in a browser, and your technology team, by the way, is only a little bit more comfortable with AI than that. So I feel like we're going in and saying you have this crisis moment or this opportunity, one of the two, and you're and the very audience is not all that equipped to actually even understand what they're dealing with and how they would make the decision. So in an attempt to do something about that, Scott introduced what is really kind of the main theme of the session, but now you've got the 10-minute preamble to why this we think is such an important topic and such a critical aspect for you.
Yeah. So what we did, so we started with what I can recall, John. This was like a 2 or 3 page response to a customer, and they had sent us some questions about how do I do this, how do I do that. I took a look at it, and I'm like, oh, this could be a little more, it could be a little more comprehensive to say, here are all the things that you should be considering. So we took those customers' questions, wrote up a document, and I said, "Hey, we should compare like how everybody else does this, right?" So we came up with, I think it was over 40 different requirements that you should at least consider. You may not need all the requirements for each workflow or each automated process, but at least you could consider how you would do that in the future, right? Because a decision today is going to lock you into what you're going to do tomorrow. So, just be flexible, right? So we took a look at, the high level, we took it, all the machine learning, right? So we said generative AI, we say, is only 5% of the solution because that is just the summarization of the data that you give it. And then, how do you build the velocity that John was talking about? So how easy is it to change, right? Because your business is going to change over time. It's different than it was yesterday than it is tomorrow. Heaven forbid you hard code some kind of agent to it. And then integration, like of all of your different systems, how are you going to interact with that? And how are people going to interact with that? what we found with a lot of the other agentic platforms, there's no concept of how to invoke or involve people, right? It's like if I need help, I need to what was the Regis Philbin show, right? Call a friend, right? If you need help.
Found a friend.
Yeah, phone a friend, right? So there's no phone a friend concept. Whereas, the your data and the AI may not support, and it's probably not going to, but I'm just going to say not. It's not going to support all of your questions and answers. Somebody is going to have to supplement an answer with some, probably with some tribal knowledge. Oh, this is how that works, right? And you put that into your model. So we looked at all the integration, the usability, and usability from the user of the system and the developer of the system. So a lot of the platforms, John, remember I told you they all talked about usability. And then when I was going through the research, I'm like, it's all developer usability. It's all in the SDK documentation, which I thought was really super interesting. And then enterprise readiness. Like we hear these stories all the time. Someone asked a question and they got an answer from data that they weren't privy to or privileged to have. You get security or privacy questions all the time from customers. Hey, is my data? I love it when somebody asked me the other day. It's like they were mentioning a cloud system. They're like, "Hey, I don't want to hook up this open AI to my cloud system because I don't want my data in the cloud." I said that it's already in the cloud, right? So we talked about that, and then we linked every single one of these requirements to the vendor websites. So you don't have to believe us; you can go read it yourself. And then, about what is the real difference? Like, which one is probably better for you? I think somebody with an IT development shop could choose one platform over the other. Someone that needs a lot of IT resources obviously needs to take a closer look at how they would have to do this. And of course, we think Krista is the best way to do it.
Yeah, and I think we should cover each of these sections that you raised one by one, but I think there's a couple of high level thoughts that even you invoked already, Scott. One is it's odd because we live in a world where we'll tell a customer, look, these are very important capabilities. You need to be able to do these things. And regardless of the tech stack the customer already has, their uh, their IT team will say, oh, well, we can already do that. Like, okay, well, technically speaking, they could have not acquired any more technology in the last 5 years, and it would still be technically true they could do that. The problem that we have in trying to educate that customer is it's not a binary. Is it feasible or can I at all versus can you not at all? Because anybody with an unlimited budget of development and data science talent can do anything that Krista can do as well. It's absolutely true, right? Let's just get that right off the bat. The challenge is, remember what we said just a minute ago. Velocity of embracing technology change is the core competency. Not, can I get my existing development team enough time to figure out how much they can do of this stuff and get it done within a reasonable. That's not the question, right? What we've got to do as business leaders is recognize that inertia is a reality in every team that we run. I've been a founder many times, and I've built teams up to the point where we always have to fight against, I know that's how we currently do it, but what got us here won't get us there, right? So we're at a point now where a bunch of development teams and a bunch of IT groups and a bunch of even competitive products to Krista are not willing to embrace the idea that it's not okay that you can do it at all. You have to be able to do it at a level of speed and velocity and ease that you have never seen yet, and no product has been able to do until now. And that's what the bar needs to be. So the nuance that we've had to try to introduce is, yes, it's possible. Scott mentioned the human in the loop idea, or the how well does it handle user involvement? Well, most of the platforms that you're seeing on the screen, if you're squinting, at least the way I have to do,
Is it
um,
small? I can make it big.
do not have a user database. They do not have an ability to audit and automatically log the transactions that they have. They have zero transparency in the AI decisions that get made. There is no explanation of how the AI made any of its decisions. There is no, uh, I, I could keep going and going. There are so many facets to things that are left for you to do from scratch that you don't have that kind of time if you're in the same market as someone who's already doing what that title company is doing. You don't need to be building the plumbing and sorting out how to get, even basic AI to function when the guy next door, the way you described it, Scott, to your left or your right, is actually taking leaps forward much, much faster. And this is why this is a challenging message for us to get across to customers is yes, it's feasible for other platforms to do some of these things. But if you end up getting in a race and you happen to jump into the car that goes 80 miles an hour and everyone else is at 120 miles an hour, you cannot win the race. That's what we're doing. Every one of us is now platforming into a race car that is going to have to carry us that next 24 months while this world changes radically. And if you're in the slow one and you randomly chose the slow one, you didn't really even consciously do it. That's the thing that's so frustrating is when we see customers that say, well, I mean, we've already got the so-and-so company stack, so I guess that's what we'll do. Well, wait, is that because you actually know that's the way to get there? Or is that just because you're actually playing into the whole inertia thing as well? Well, or the other. Well, I mean, what someone in the so-and-so team, downloaded or grabbed this, so we've been, doing something with it, so I guess we'll just run with that. Those are, you know, man, I would hate for luck to be the way that I decided the fate of my company relative to its AI journey, because I think it's an incredibly important decision regardless of what business you're in. It's even incredibly important in our business. Our own, as a software company, we are radically transforming. We're being disrupted. Our own way of doing things is completely radically changing. It's true for everyone in the world. And it's oftentimes that technology companies actually can introduce this kind of disruption and not be affected as much by it. This one's actually doing the same to us. So Scott, why don't you introduce each of these? And then Chris and I, all three of us, we can give some color behind why we've scored some things the way that we did. And of course, what we mean by them, because we want folks to have their own, go get your own perspective on any of these things, right? We know that no serious minded person is going to blindly read. And especially when you see that we're incredibly, um, look, machine learning capabilities, it's obviously green on the left and everything else is a mess. How is that even possible? So we'll try to touch on that at a high level, but again, we'll implore you, get into the detail if you need to, because there's serious differences here. And as I said a little earlier, I feel so old. I don't know how to say. I mean, I've been doing this for a long time. Our salespeople love to start meetings, and I'm even in these meetings, guys. You know what? John delivered his first NLP-based software, AI, natural language processing, in 1992 to market. It's like, gee, thanks. Yes, you can do a little bit of math and you know that I've been around a long time. And even now, we have a relatively old product in a brand new, very immature market, right? We founded this thing in 2019 with a vision of exactly what the world is attempting to do right now. We needed to platform ourselves to deliver radically faster human, system, and AI capabilities orchestrated together to achieve business outcomes. Simple way to describe what we do here. So, Scott, maybe introduce each of these areas, and then let's get some color on each of them. Maybe that'll give some folks an understanding of how we went to another level of detail, right? And not just everybody can claim it, so therefore we can check it.
Yeah, and there are a lot of claims. I'm a product marketer myself, and I would read a lot of these websites, and I just started giggling, like, "Oh yeah, we totally lie like this." But I want to Let's start talking about knowledge agents first, because that I think is the easiest example for people to understand. So a knowledge agent is basically you hook up, some type of system, right? Agentic capability to query your databases, your SharePoint, your knowledge base, your documents, right? And then I want to go back, John, into how do you keep that updated? And that's conversation. So I'm going to flip these, right? So let's talk about agent capabilities, what those are, how they work, and then how you keep that updated with real-time data, just like this. Like we are recording this session today, and it'll be integrated into our knowledge base as soon as we click end.
Right, right. Um, so knowledge agent is somewhat analogous, but not entirely, to what the market calls RAG, retrieval augmented generation, which is proof that I am not the only guy that doesn't know how to name anything. Um, the uh, the a knowledge agent is essentially, as exactly as Scott said, what what seems like a very simple use case immediately becomes, as soon as you try to operationalize it, immediately becomes very challenging. That you do not have a ready data set for this knowledge agent. No one, I haven't met anybody that does, not probably going to ever meet anybody that does. You need a knowledge agent that actually helps you curate the content as you deploy it and helps you interconnect the systems and people who are capable of preparing that content and curating that content over time. It's got to have the ability to be date sensitive, incredibly careful with regard to security. It's got to answer with contextual information, because the answer to a very simple question, hey, do we get off on Monday, is different based on where you are, what type of employee you are, if you're hourly or full time, are you on one of the union contracts, and what country are you in? There's so many things that suddenly make what you think are seemingly simple questions all of a sudden quite nuanced. And just the notion of reading comprehension makes for a significant challenge to actually get beyond a step or two. Now, to have built all of that out and to provide that to you is what I mean by giving you such great velocity. You're not going to see that, whoa, wait a minute. I thought I could do this in some ragtag of tools, and I could do like the simplistic one step, and then, but as soon as I try to go to step two, I got a big software build on my hands.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. There's where you're struggling, right?
Yeah. And one problem people have is like the second thing, that role-based security. So not every document should every person have visibility to. So it's not just you want to ingest things from SharePoint, from your website. Some of those are very context specific. So like HR managers see documents that employees don't see, right? Sales managers have visibility across multiple deals that an individual would not. So part of RAG isn't just, can you get lots of information in there? How are you securing it so the right role has access to the right information? You don't have data leakage or shared things that they shouldn't see. And then you do have to continuously feed it, right? You have to, every time there's a sales meeting, it has to go in. Every time there's a new document in SharePoint, overnight, that thing has to come in, because you don't want your data to go stale. So that's another thing. It's like, it's not just do this once. So people said, oh, well, we're just going to fine tune the LLM. It's like, well, first, you can do that every night. Second, how do you secure the data? And third, how do you prevent hallucinations? So there's a lot of things that are happening in the background, because this is a platform, and it was our job to figure out how to do all that. So you didn't even have to worry about it, right? It's like,
Right.
we're doing so much in the background, people don't realize. It's like, this seems like pretty simple, but once you get into the bits and bytes, how do you prevent hallucinations? This isn't something simple like, oh, just give the LLM all my data and hope it knows this is my data versus what it trained on Reddit in the middle of the night,
Oh,
and secure the questions, right?
remember, Chris, the example that we would provide people, that seemingly simple, was travel, like per diem, like how much can
Mhm.
they spend on, per day on travel? Well, it
Yep.
depends on who you are. Because remember when At a previous company of ours, I think we could spend like $50, but other people could spend a whole lot. Like John, he could spend a whole lot more, right?
Right.
Uh,
Your
so how do
employee
you,
band
yeah, how do you limit the
associated
interest?
you with per diem and hotel rates and, business class versus peasant class tickets on the
And if
airplane,
you
all
want
those
to
things,
start a
right?
mute, yeah, and if you want to start a mutiny among your employees, just give them the whole table.
Yeah,
Let
let 'em
everybody
do
see what
that.
the other guy gets it. So let's move on. Conversation agent is exactly as Scott introduced just a second ago. It's what about capturing all of those conversations that your organization has? This very meeting of that we are having is such a thing. So are all of the meetings that you have on Zoom or Teams, etc. The email threads, the chats within your collaboration platform. There's an enormous amount of tribal knowledge that gets either expressed or created within those platforms. And there's no way. I was talking with a customer earlier today. They've already pumped their emails into 3 different systems. 3 different SaaS systems are now reading all of their emails out of their inboxes in order to try to do one thing with them. This whole siloed approach to trying to take AI is going to drive you guys insane. It really is. And there's just one little simple example. We're doing work for these guys in one of their area of the business and now introduced to another. It's like, oh yeah, we do that by doing this. Okay, well, most of our customers, we want to be really careful with how much we even access email at all. And they're like literally just broadcasting it to 3 different places. And that's because they're trying to get the value out of it. And I feel for those who are trying to figure out how to get this right without thinking more strategically about it. Anyway, conversation agent gets you an awareness of where are we really? Because no one data source is 100% of the truth. It's either out of date or it's not complete or it doesn't have the perspective of other data sources and other people. So when you ask, what are the last what are the last interactions we've had with our customer Acme? Well, that might have been through email. It might be in your ticketing system. It might be a meeting you had a couple of days ago, or it might be the sales proposal from a month ago. But no one system, but something like Krista that can cross all of those different content areas. Don't fall into the trap of saying, well, let's have this little thing that goes and collects all of our meeting transcripts. You've just isolated all of that incredibly important knowledge into an area where you can't spread it across the rest of the organization. And the most important aspect of what Krista does, in my view at least, with this notion of Krista's enterprise level of understanding, is the linkage of orchestration to outcomes. We continue to look at ways that you see no one asks questions, and I shouldn't say no one, because 30% of the time it's curiosity. I wonder if, right? And that may be useful. But easily 70% of the time that someone is seeking the answer to a question, it's to achieve an outcome. I I've not yet been in a situation where I am seriously digging through some certain question that I'm trying to get answered, that I'm not in the process of trying to accomplish something with it. So when Krista's ability to orchestrate is layered into that whole system, you all of a sudden get to link Krista's enterprise-wide context to the ability to do things at machine speed. And that is the killer feature. Because without that, you end up with resolving the 30% curiosity and then sending people away to however they're going to try to get things done. And what you want is the machine to take over as much as possible. When you say, hey, oh, wait a minute. So you're worried about this customer. Do I need to get them into the customer care list? And do I need to send out a new welcome email? And do I need to do blah, blah, blah? That's what you're looking for. You're not looking for people to remember what they need to do and go make sure they get that done. You want the machine to be proactively doing it for you. And the linkage of knowledge, especially enterprise understanding level knowledge, into that orchestration is key. So let's touch on machine learning. And Scott, there's a lot of red here. So how can we claim such a thing?
Well, the machine learning capabilities, I mean, we were looking at obviously with the list here, and if you can't read it, classifiers, predictors, anomaly detection, custom model training. So this is basically providing a data scientist without having a data scientist. confidence scoring, and then you mentioned this earlier. How do you know which decision that AI made? The transparency reports. So this is this has come up many times online. We've seen the idea of the agentic control tower or the IT control tower, right? You have to figure out when when an inquiry comes in, when a business process, starts, like you need to figure out like, okay, what is this, right? So just classifying it as what is it based on intent or some type of classifier data. Oh, this is a support ticket, this is a warranty claim, this is a refund request, whatever it is, right? Different processes require some type of air traffic controller, maybe. There's no concept in any of these other platforms for that. The reason is because the most of the use cases that are listed are person or role specific.
Right.
This is a thing that I give this type of employee to do this one thing, right? And they're calling it agentic. And you're going to end up with 1,000 of these. If you're a sized, I would say a 500 employee organization, you're probably gonna have 2,000 of these, right? Because each employee is gonna have four. They're gonna be built on four different platforms or four different SaaS systems, and that's the sprawl that we're talking about. Is if you need all these capabilities, you need to think about how you're basically going to increase your technical debt. So with machine learning, there was basically no mention of this at all.
Yeah. And there's a reason for that. Unfortunately, most of the platforms on this list and those that are not, if this was a 17-inch wide piece of paper, um, are thin veneers over Gen AI, and Gen AI is incredibly powerful. It's not anything but groundbreaking, right? I mean, in so many ways, and it's empowered so many outcomes for Krista and for everyone else, right? Um, but it is not a good classifier, just as an example. And I mean, just flat out, it's not a good classifier. It's a generative, pre-trained model. It doesn't have the notion of actually classification. It's a different space, right? It's just not the skill it has. Now, it can be asked to do that, right? In some cases, it can be okay at doing it. The fundamental issue is it'll never get better than it was day one. So let's say it's 60% accurate. Let's say it's 70% accurate, whatever it is. It's not going to 61 or 71. It's not going to. You don't train it. It doesn't get any better. So you're not going to get better at doing whatever it is you're currently doing. And that's a fundamental flaw in leveraging the inappropriate AI when there is an appropriate AI for that very use case. Classification is how we love them or hate them. How fraudulent transactions in international trade are being flagged at the government level. It's how tons of things. My prior startup in mobile security was identifying threats on mobile devices and malicious applications by classification. It's a it's a great science. It's a great AI science. It's got to be heavily leveraged for you in order to make what is currently human decision making shift to machine speed. When Krista is able to learn from your people and identify that this is one of those decisions that is very similar enough to the training that she's already got from your people, that she can make that decision on their behalf and keep that process moving in machine speed, you've just accomplished the stuff we're talking about. Velocity. You need velocity over the way you currently do it, and you need faster velocity than others in your market. This is a perfect example. Predicting numbers, dates, identifying anomalies, all of these things are so important. And of course, if you don't have rigorous, complete transparency and confidence scoring, you can't know when you do and don't take the fast route or whether you have to put it in front of people. So from the very foundation of how we built Krista, we knew we needed Krista to be a great data scientist. And we knew we needed Krista to clearly articulate, I do not have enough information in order for me to be confident in this area. And by the way, that's exactly how we make decisions. We didn't do anything particularly novel. We literally modeled, going back, the whole knowledge agent, we literally modeled reading comprehension tests. That's literally the mental model that you could go in and know exactly how Krista works. In this, we modeled in this regard, how do we make decisions? Well, how do we act on the decision? Well, I've got a certain amount of information. This is the way I'm leaning. Do I have sufficient information for me to be comfortable that that's the right decision? I do or I don't, right? And of course, there's a fuzziness to this. But that's generally speaking, at least when we're in our rational mind, not in our irrational mind, we can absolutely make that decision and go with it, or we know we need more input. And that's exactly when I might be grabbing Chris or Scott, right? I don't have enough information here, and I'm going to grab a Chris or Scott and say, hey, I need you to either answer this for me, or I need additional content that you can give me that allows me to then know that I have sufficient content that I can make this happen. I cannot stress enough that the core machine learning capabilities woven into the orchestration of outcomes is the single biggest thing that you must be able to do. At the beginning of that title example that Chris gave is this a warranty deed? That is a classifier. In every one of our customer support use cases, is this a request for return, product inquiry, where's my bill? Is it one of those? Because Krista can handle many, many, many of those fully to an automated outcome. But if a person's having to triage them, or if only 70% of the time is Krista ever going to get it right, because instead of doing a real machine learning model, it's not that Gen AI is not real machine learning, guys. Pardon me. Instead of a built on your data machine learning model, that's actually the big difference. Pre-trained, the P in GPT is pre-trained, which means it already knows what it knows. You need a model that's going to learn on you. It's funny, real quick aside, it's why we did the podcast a couple of weeks ago. Yes, we are going to train on your data. We are going to train AI on your data, and you really need us to, because we're actually getting a bunch of customers who send us these, the AI, what is it? The
Like RFI.
security. Yeah, exactly. And in there, the IT group, thanks for freeing me from that. The IT group is sending out the third-party risk stuff saying, please confirm that you're not going to train AI on our model, on our data. It's like, how do I answer that question? Because of course we are, and that's why you'd buy us. But of course not for third parties, guys. Not for third parties. All right. So we can move on from machine learning, but if you take anything away from this, this is an unlock I think everyone in this session should really take to heart.
Yeah, you actually will route work to different agents, and you're either going to have a machine do it or a person do it, basically. So Chris, all the integration and orchestration capabilities, you're probably, you're an expert in this, right?
Yep.
I mean, from Web Methods days and Lisa days and Krista days. I mean,
Yep.
And WorkSoft, right? So walk us through some of the integration and orchestration capabilities. One thing that I do want to touch on is the wait, right? Because not all processes are done immediately. So when you get to that, I'm gonna interject in here and tell you how one of these vendors would do it.
Yeah. So what's interesting is people, they come from integration, either old school like me, it's like, I'm going to connect the data between 15 different systems so it can do something interesting. But in modern times, people are so RPA focused. It's like, well, my integration is I'm going to replay a transaction on a screen in one specific functional area, which just is task automation of one thing. So with this title company, they had like they did layers of deployments, right? Our first one was let's identify documents and then create them. But then I said, now the next step is just because we didn't add more title clerks doesn't mean we can add more people in the back office to handle billing and to handle, the receivables. And then the next step and the next step. So they said, okay, for us to say we've delivered, say, Scott, a title document to you, it's not this that we got it right. We also billed you the right amount. You got the invoice. We verified you paid it. And we then, are going to market to you again to buy more of these services from us, right? So it actually spans multiple departments all of a sudden. And that's where the orchestration of the outcome from them, if you think, oh, well, they're just going to create a new title, say a release of lean. Well, no, it's not this, they got it, but did we actually bill the person? So we make the money and then but we can't spend, a bunch of human dollars and hours typing in, oh, this was done, take my spreadsheet, type it into the payroll, into the billing system, and then verify that they got the email and they paid it, they didn't pay it. So their orchestration was actually connecting multiple systems together. It was email. It was actually the actual like CRM. Are you who you say you are? Can we create this customer? It was like then the AI to generate the documents themselves. And then we handshaked to the accounting system to actually finish the loop and say, bill them for the documents there. So orchestration can't be simple tasks. Those would be 5 separate tasks. It has to span across them. So you want integration, and the beginning data is needed all the way across. Interesting enough, all the systems need to know who you are, what your contact phone number is, what your address is, and the type of document. Every step along the way, the data has to be carried across all the systems because you wouldn't know who to bill and what to bill them for, right? So this is something that it's a little bit of breaking the mold of moving away from single siloed task automation. I make one widget faster. We want to take those 6 Lego blocks and build something with them, that end-to-end orchestration.
We've all seen that reality of when you're on the road with a traffic light every quarter of a mile or half a mile, that it almost doesn't matter how fast you go in between the lights. You're still going to be sitting at a red light, right? You can save gas and go at a reasonable speed, or you can try to go like crazy and try to beat the light, but you never beat the light. You're just going to be stuck behind another, a bunch of other cars that are sitting there who also burned a bunch of gas trying to beat a light. Optimizing a single step in a system often yields nothing except burned energy. That's essentially the point. And we've known this for quite some time, right? And the concurrent engineering principles are all there. But the problem is that most automation platforms end up sounding like and defining themselves as outcome oriented, but then devolve into just being capable of delivering on tasks. And where they break down is in human in the loop and on the elegance at which they integrate systems. And so let's drill down just a little bit more and then move on to the next one so that we can get through all of these in time. We've got to have a nothing like code way to describe what our outcome looks like. Otherwise, we're doomed to have to write it down and hand it to a developer to actually implement. Connectivity to systems is definitely a system style capability, system style skill requirement. But your business processes change 80% of the time more often than your connectivity does. You haven't changed your CRM in a long time, and when you do, it's a big deal. So when you connect Krista to a system, you do that once for a long time. But the way you want to run your business and integrate CRM information and capabilities changes constantly. So the integration platform as a service handles the connectivity of Krista to a system, which is a one-time technical thing, typically technical, not always, but it is, but just assume it is. What runs on top of that is a conversation-like way to integrate. We literally use conversation as our programming language. I inform people of things, I ask people for things, I ask systems for things, I ask Krista, which is how we invoke AI. There's literally nothing more complicated to it than that. But make no mistake, it is as complicated to do that as your process is. So if you're about to do something super simple, Krista's a breeze in the park. If you are trying to represent a really complicated business process, then you're going to have a lot of complication that you've got to try to represent in Krista. We make that as easy as we can. We try to take the technical requirement out, but we are so much further down the road in our ability to represent complex processes, long-running processes, system-initiated processes than anyone else on the market. I think you'd be really surprised. And there's tons of ways we could drill down deeper into this, but I hope that you'd be able to take a look at that. We have an independent orchestration agent. A light version of it comes with every agent that we produce. All of these agents run on the same Krista platform. Everything is available to you from literally one screen in Krista can produce every single capability that Krista has. So you're not switching products, you're not switching tools or skills or programming languages, nothing of the sort. So that level of refinement is, again, how we can achieve a velocity that is beyond what I think that any other tech stack would be able to give.
Yeah, with the connectors, John, you touched on this a bit, but I just would warn people that the connectors are not binary. Like just because there was or is a connector, they don't all work the same.
It's
Um,
true.
it,
It's true. There's a company on the market, and I won't name them, not that because I have no reason to be saying negative things about them, but they you can claim to have 2,000 or whatever connectors, but what they actually mean is point to point integrations that are already pre-built to do a single thing. And
that's
if
correct.
you and if that's not what you need, then you are in trouble, right? Because it's not like you can go expand on that. And so you really need something that is, that you've got to separate the business logic of what you are trying to accomplish from the connectivity. Otherwise, you're in a situation like that, right?
Yeah, especially when Chris was talking about state earlier, right? You have to remember like who you are through the whole process and then, cobbling together 8 different connectors in one process. You hope it works. Hey, but they had a connector for it. So we've got 7 minutes, John, and we still have to cover any enterprise readiness. One of the most interesting um, capabilities in here was the long running workflows. I think the longest running workflow that I read about was 9 minutes. Like anything longer than 9 minutes, it would just stop. Right, you couldn't reinitiate that. So I thought that was interesting. And then basically the all the logging systems, the traceability that we look at, role based access control we've talked about. What about here? What about enterprise readiness is the most interesting to you, and what would you forewarn people to really to reconsider?
All I'd say to try to summarize so that we can leave opportunity for questions if there are any, um, is it's easy for them to say they'll do something like role-based access control, but what they're actually saying is you can build role-based access control, right? Um, you we don't, so there is a already existing complete chatbot. Every other product that I was a part of researching has a chatbot SDK. There's a significant difference between a chatbot SDK and a chatbot. I was on a call with an existing customer, and they're actually just literally a couple of hours ago, and they were talking about how they want to transition the off-hour support to Krista, so that during normal hours, they want it to be an interaction where it's basically triage it, see if you can answer it, and if Krista is not already trained on how to answer that question or deal with that issue, then let's route it to an agent. But when it's off hours, we need to actually behave differently, right? Because there's no one to transition to. We had not done the chatbot deployment for them. Our customer success guy, Vivek, on this call, while we're in the Teams meeting, he goes, he creates the chatbot, he puts it into the workspace, he shows them where it is, and he says, "There's the URL, and there's the script you put in your browser." That's it. That's it. And there's a level of that and a number of places that you would be surprised. We have a full client experience, in addition to, by the way, all of the omni-channel connectors and stuff. But there's a full client that already exists. You're not going to create a login screen because it's already been built. You're not going to create an onboarding workflow because it already exists. You get the point. So there's a level of richness in what already exists that you are going to be building in most all of these. And even those that have a full tech stack and think, my goodness, surely this company's stack has some of that, maybe, but realize that you're using 4 different products from those guys to do this one thing. So it may not even be applicable or possible to use. So we've seen all of that kind of stuff when people are saying, yeah, you know what, when I tried this project and with the other guy's stuff, I thought I could get all of that from them. And frankly, by the time I tried to put it all together, I couldn't make anything work. So high level, I would hope you could recognize you need, again, if I could summarize, we think, it's our assertion, you need to find a platform that can bend with you, move fast, enable you to either succeed or learn, right? It's not succeed or fail, it's succeed or learn. And those that succeed faster are the ones who learn the most. So get that moving, start small, but have a big plan. And we think that we're a great partner for you to do that.
And then, Chris, you've been monitoring the comments, right? Any questions?
Yep. So I didn't see any questions. A lot of great partners are in there. I actually see we've got like 29 people live inside of here. And so it looks like Pablo in sales has actually commented on several people, but a lot of people are saying they like the actual use case, and they did agree that to go big with AI, you need several things in there. But I'm not seeing any specific questions for you, Scott, other than Andy's like, oh, great, I should do this thing. Andy winners. Scott, you nailed it. Creating technical debt across multiple platforms will slow operations. We can't really let people know someone agrees with Scott, but there you go.
This is recorded. Awesome.
Oh, darn it. Yeah. And then
right.
Stanley agrees with us on the proliferation and disconnection of copilots and one-off bots really highlight the fragmentation AIOS market. He said that's really interesting. He said he was curious, how does our report address interoperability between different AI platforms and ensuring seamless integration enhancements across that productivity? So he's asking about outcomes, right?
We can touch on that really quickly. So
Yeah,
and we mentioned in the paper.
On 60 seconds on that, and then we got to go.
You got it. So it's not like Krista is the last piece of system software you'll ever buy. It's not the last AI you'll ever buy. It should be the way you weave it all together. So if there's an AI capability out there that looks really good to you, you just want to make sure that Krista connects to it, because that empowers everyone in your organization to be able to access it and use it. And you could always switch it out for something else, and no one would even know the difference because your outcomes won't change, or they'll improve based on what you did.
Awesome. Well, thanks everybody for hanging in there with us. Again, if you want to grab the report, it's on Krista.ai in our resources. And then in the drop down, you'll see white papers, and it's the first one available. Just go ahead and click on it. You don't have to register to read it. We're not going to chase you. We just want you to read and consume and make good decisions about automation and AI. So appreciate it. And thanks, John. Thanks, Chris. Loved it. See you guys later.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.